مرحبا بكم مشاهدينا في حوارات السياق. تجري إيران والولايات المتحدة محادثات غير مباشرة في قطر بهدف إحياء الاتفاق النووي بعد توقف دام أسابيع. عموما للمزيد من المتابعة حول هذا الملف ينضم إلينا خودوركوفسكي نائب مساعد وزير الخارجية الأسبق ومستشار أول لممثل الولايات المتحدة في إيران. سيد لين، مرحبا بك معنا.
Thanks for having me.
عودة المفاوضات بشأن برنامج إيران النووي بعد توقف لأسابيع، هل من تطورات دفعت إلى ذلك؟
I believe that this is a strategy of the Iranian regime to stretch out the negotiations in order to get maximum concessions from the United States. They have so far succeeded in doing that. They've probably gotten more than they've expected. I think they're still holding out for some relief on the IRGC sanctions and probably holding out the remaining American hostages for more ransom money. So as long as the Biden administration keeps indulging the regime, they're going to be stretching out the negotiations to their benefit.
عند توقف المفاوضات قيل إن العقدة كانت برفع الحرس الثوري من قائمة الإرهاب. جيروزالم بوست ذكرت أن الولايات المتحدة وجدت مخرجا للأمر بحيث يمكن لعدد من أعضاء الحرس بزيارة الولايات المتحدة. هل حلت هذه العقدة إذن؟
I don't think it's been solved. I think the regime was looking for some concession on that front, which they received, unfortunately. This is not a move that is popular in the United States, not just among the Republicans in the United States, but among Democrats as well. There's a bipartisan consensus today that the Biden administration lost the window to get any value out of JCPOA 2.0, and that any remaining time is going to only benefit the regime. That's why members of both parties have asked the Biden administration to look for Plan B in terms of addressing the ultimate threat from the regime, which is obviously attaining a nuclear weapon and continuing its malign activity in the region.
شطب الحرس الثوري الإيراني من قائمة المنظمات الإرهابية الأجنبية سيكون له تأثير اقتصادي محدود نسبيا على طهران. لماذا تصر إيران عليه؟
Well, I think there are a couple of reasons why the regime wants the IRGC delisted. Number one, it allows them to claim that IRGC is a perfectly normal government organization, which it's not. It's a terrorist entity. It's much like the Gestapo in World War II Nazi regime. This is not a normal government entity like a Department of Foreign Relations or Treasury or anything else. They only exist to protect the revolution. And so anything that happens that threatens the Islamic Revolution of 1979 is what IRGC is created for. In addition, over the last 43 years, the IRGC has taken over most of the Iranian economy. So the benefits of sanctions relief to IRGC means that more of their entities will be allowed to make money, which means more money in the pockets of terrorists, less money in the pockets of the ordinary people, and it gives the Iranian regime the ability to enrich itself and still continue to do research in its nuclear program and eventually attain a nuclear weapon. This is a very bad deal for the United States, for the Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Israel, all the countries on the front lines of the Iranian threat.
احتمال شطب الحرس الثوري من قائمة المنظمات الإرهابية أثار قلق حلفاء أمريكا في المنطقة بما في ذلك إسرائيل. هل تأخذ الولايات المتحدة ذلك بعين الاعتبار؟
Well, it should. Certainly during the Trump administration, we worked closely with all of our partners in the region, all of the countries I just mentioned. We worked very closely. In fact, we built or rebuilt a lot of trust between the United States and our friends in the Gulf and in the Middle East in general, which is why it allowed us to be able to deploy a maximum pressure strategy that was supported by our friends in the region. You know, a lot of times the Biden administration or the European countries talk about a multilateral approach to diplomacy. Well, the diplomacy that the Trump administration embarked on included all of our friends in the region. It was multilateral. What is excluded these days is the presence of all of our friends at the table in negotiating with a regime that threatens their citizens and conducts terrorism on their shores. So it's really a flawed approach that has proven to be counterproductive. We've already seen what the regime can do without pressure in about a year and a half. It was able to attain enough uranium to build at least one nuclear warhead. That is because of sanctions relief. That is because the regime did not feel pressure from the outside to change its behavior. So what would happen with JCPOA 1.0 and 2.0 is at the end of this deal, which expires in 2031, the regime will resume exactly where it is today, which is be able to restart its race to the nuclear weapon, which it will attain quickly and legitimately because they would have theoretically stuck to the deal. So the big takeaway here is our objective should not be concluding some sort of a deal that is counterproductive to our national security interests. Our objective should be to box in the world's top state sponsor of terrorism. And this deal does not do it. And that's what both parties in the United States are calling for, a plan that will actually achieve that national security objective.
الأزمة الأوكرانية أظهرت الفجوة بين أمريكا وحلفائها في الشرق الأوسط. كيف يمكن أن يكون الاتفاق النووي أداة لإبعادهم أو تقريبهم؟
Unfortunately, the Biden administration does not see eye to eye with our friends in the region right now when it comes to the most dangerous threat to their sovereignty, which is the Iranian regime. Again, that trust that was built during the previous administration that allowed all of these countries to build on their security cooperation and actually turn it into the Abraham Accords, where the cooperation goes well beyond security into economic cooperation, humanitarian cooperation. The Biden administration reversed course back to the Obama policy that was a source of a lot of distrust between the governments in the region and the United States. Unfortunately, that's where we are right now. And there's a lot of work that the American government needs to do to build back that trust, because it is not in our interest for our friends in the region to look elsewhere for partnerships with China, Russia, or anybody else. Look, I'm a big fan of the country, of the region in general. I love what is happening in all of the countries that are our friends and partners. The future is for all of the countries, the Emirates, Saudis, Bahrainis, Moroccans, all of the countries in the region is with the United States, not with China, not with Russia. That is the future. So what I would ask all of our friends in all of these countries to consider is a long-term benefit of buying into a long-term relationship with the United States, and not look for short-term solutions to major issues, which will span longer than just one administration. I think that is I think in the long-term interest of everybody involved. I hope the Biden administration reverses course, just like the Democrats in the Senate, the Congress people in the Senate are asking it to do. The Congress people in the House of Representatives, excuse me, and consider a Plan B, which is a plan to deter the Iranian regime from not just attaining a nuclear weapon, but continuing to foment terrorism among our friends and pursue very sophisticated missiles and buy weapons from the Russians and the Chinese to not just threaten our friends, but to oppress their own people.
يتم في الفترة الأخيرة ترويج لفكرة ناتو شرق أوسطي لمواجهة إيران. إلى أي مدى ترى ذلك منطقياً في الفترة الحالية؟
That is an idea that has been brought up in past years. I think it's a realistic idea. It's increasingly realistic. It was less realistic before the Abraham Accords. It is much more realistic today now that Israel does have cooperation with 6 countries in the region publicly and many more behind the scenes. So I do think that that is realistic. I think there is security cooperation that's happening already between Israel and Arab countries, specifically as it comes to the Iranian threat. So I do think that that is a possibility, and the countries should discuss that. I think it's in their own best interest to come to some sort of an understanding about mutual assistance when it comes to shared threats. We're seeing the value of a defense agreement in Europe right now that is so far keeping the conflict between Russia and Ukraine relegated to the Ukrainian borders. Without NATO, there was significant danger that that conflict would have spilled out into other countries. I think a similar arrangement between Israel and the Arab countries, I think would have a similar impact on Iranian designs on the region as a whole. I think it would play a significant role in trying to limit the projection of a threat from Iranian proxies, Hezbollah, the Houthis, the Iraqi militias. All of those threats, I think, would be deterred by such an alliance.
بالنسبة لبايدن ونظرائه الأوروبيين، أزمة الطاقة العالمية الناتجة عن حرب أوكرانيا هي حافز إضافي للحصول على موارد الطاقة الإيرانية في السوق في أقرب وقت. هل يمكن أن يدفع ذلك الطموح إلى مزيد من التنازلات؟
I think that's an enormous mistake. What the Trump administration policy approved is that we don't need Iranian and Venezuelan oil to have stable oil markets, to have a stable, well-priced energy market. In fact, during the maximum pressure campaign, when we zeroed out Iranian oil exports, the prices of oil were very affordable, and the world's energy needs were served just fine. So I think it's a mistake to look at Iran and Venezuela as partners in stabilizing energy needs of the world, because it comes with a heavy price, and that price is enriching regimes that not only oppress their own people, but project their threats outside of their borders. So we cannot afford to subsidize national security threats to ourselves and our friends. And there's a perfectly sound solution to that problem by, certainly in the United States, by tapping our own oil reserves, not just reserves, by producing enough oil to serve our own needs, and the countries in the region to produce enough oil for the rest of the needs. So I do think that it's a flawed strategy, and I think it's going to prove to be very damaging and dangerous in the long run.
طبعا دون أن ننسى هنا أن فنزويلا وإيران حلفاء لروسيا. سؤالي الأخير هو في حال العودة للاتفاق النووي، من الطرف المستفيد؟
The nuclear deal will only benefit the Iranian regime. No one else. There's not a single other beneficiary of the deal, other than, I should add, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, the Iraqi militias, all of the terrorist proxies funded by the Iranian regime, the mullahs who are going to enrich themselves and stuff the proceeds into their pockets. Those are the only beneficiaries: the IRGC, the regime, and the regime's proxies.
شكرا جزيلا لك لين خودوركوفسكي للمشاركة معنا في حوارات السياق.
Thank you very much for having me.
مشاهدينا، شكرا على طيب المتابعة. إلى الملتقى.